American bombs fell on Iranian cities today, not on military installations inside Iran, not on nuclear facilities, not on IRGC command posts, on cities. Al Jazeera confirmed that U.S. airstrikes hit civilian areas in Bandar Khamir, Sirik, and Qeshm Island in southern Iran. Iranian air defenses are active over western Tehran as I record this. The United States targeted an Iranian oil tanker in coastal waters. A second vessel was targeted near the UAE's Fujairah port. This is happening while the United States and Iran are supposedly discussing a one-page memorandum of understanding that would end the conflict. I want to spend the next 18 minutes explaining what today's strikes mean, why they happen now, and what comes next for the region and for the Americans who have been asking through every diplomatic cycle, every ceasefire announcement, every claimed breakthrough, when this war ends. The answer after today is not soon.
What happened today, precisely, let me be exact about what the reporting confirms, because I think precision matters here more than at any previous point in this conflict. Al Jazeera confirmed this morning that U.S. forces struck civilian areas in 3 locations in southern Iran: Bandar Khamir, Sirik, and Qeshm Island. These are not IRGC headquarters. These are not nuclear facilities. Bandar Khamir is a coastal city. Sirik is a port town. Qeshm Island is the largest island in the Persian Gulf. It has a population of approximately 120,000 people and a significant civilian economy centered on fishing, tourism, and trade. The strikes are taking place while Iranian air defenses are active over western Tehran. This means Iran is tracking American and potentially Israeli aircraft over its capital. Air defenses do not activate over western Tehran because of events in southern Iran alone. They activate because of a threat perceived to be approaching the capital itself. The United States simultaneously targeted an Iranian oil tanker in coastal waters and a second vessel near Fujairah. This is not Hormuz interdiction. This is direct targeting of Iranian oil infrastructure in proximity to the UAE's primary port outside the strait, the bypass route that Iran has been using to move oil around the blockade, and simultaneously, Israel bombed Beirut. I want you to hold all of those facts together. American bombs on Iranian coastal cities, air defenses over Tehran, Iranian oil vessels targeted near Fujairah, Israeli bombs on Beirut. All of this while a one-page memorandum that would end the conflict was reportedly within 48 hours of an Iranian response. This is not a military operation designed to produce a deal. This is a military operation designed to produce a capitulation. And the distinction between those two objectives is the distance between where this conflict might have been headed yesterday and where it is headed today. Why the timing, what the strikes on civilian areas tell you, I want to address the specific question of why these strikes are happening now. Because the timing, with a one-page deal reportedly close, with the Beijing summit 6 days away, is not accidental. There are 2 possible explanations for strikes on Iranian coastal cities at this moment. The first is that the administration believes Iran is stalling, using the 48-hour response window to buy time rather than to genuinely assess the proposal, and has decided to apply additional military pressure to accelerate a response. The second is that the strikes are not designed to produce an Iranian signature on the one-page memo at all. They are designed to degrade Iran's economic infrastructure, the Fujairah bypass route, the oil tankers that have been moving Iranian crude outside American financial controls, before any deal is signed that might constrain America's ability to target those assets. Both explanations are strategically coherent from Washington's perspective. Neither produces the outcome that the American families watching this are hoping for. Strikes on civilian areas in Bandar Khamir and Qeshm Island do not make Iran more willing to ship its uranium to American custody. They make the Iranian government's domestic political ability to accept that demand smaller, not larger. The IRGC's institutional identity is built on resistance to external pressure. Every bomb that falls on an Iranian city strengthens the argument inside Tehran that the people calling for resistance over accommodation are right. The Fujairah targeting tells you something specific about the economic dimension. Iran has been routing oil through the Fujairah bypass throughout this conflict, using the pipeline infrastructure that connects the UAE's east coast to international shipping lanes outside Hormuz. American targeting of Iranian vessels near Fujairah is an attempt to close that bypass. If successful, it increases the economic pressure on Iran. If it provokes a direct Iranian response against UAE territory, which Iranian forces have already demonstrated they will do, having attacked the UAE twice in the last week, it expands the conflict's geographic scope further. The one-page deal, what today's strikes do to it. Yesterday, I was explaining what the one-page memorandum contained and why it represented a genuine path to ending the conflict. Let me explain what today's strikes do to that path. The memorandum was structured around Iran reviewing a proposal and conveying its response through Pakistani mediators. The 48-hour response window was the diplomatic timeline. Iran's foreign ministry had said it was reviewing the document carefully. Today, American bombs fell on Iranian coastal cities. An Iranian government that responds to an American proposal by signing a one-page memorandum on the day American bombs fall on Iranian civilians, on the same day Iranian air defenses activate over Tehran, would be signing a document that its own population and its own revolutionary institutions would interpret as surrender under fire. No Iranian government can accept those optics. Not a reformist government, not a pragmatist government, not the IRGC influenced government that is effectively running wartime Iran. The strikes today have not killed the deal necessarily. They have made any deal signed in the immediate aftermath of the strikes politically toxic inside Iran. The window for a deal before the Beijing summit has narrowed significantly, not closed, narrowed. If the bombs stop today and both sides return to the diplomatic track, there may still be a path. But the path that existed yesterday morning, Iran reviews, Iran responds, Pakistani mediators carry the response, deal is close, is not the path that exists today evening. What Iran's response tells you, Iran's air defenses activated over western Tehran. I want to explain what that specific fact tells you about Iran's military assessment of today's situation. Air defenses do not activate over a capital city because of strikes on coastal towns 300 kilometers away. They activate because of an active threat to the capital itself. Iran's military is tracking something, aircraft, missiles, or both, that it considers a potential threat to Tehran's airspace. This could mean Israeli aircraft are operating in Iranian airspace at a range that triggers Tehran's defensive systems. It could mean the United States is conducting surveillance operations that Iran's radar systems classify as pre-strike positioning. It could mean the IRGC is running defensive exercises in response to the southern strikes as a precautionary measure. Whatever the specific operational explanation, the signal is clear. Iran is not treating today's strikes as a limited operation against coastal infrastructure that can be quietly absorbed. Iran is treating today's strikes as a potential opening phase of a broader escalation. The air defenses over Tehran are Iran's military telling its government, prepare for the possibility that this gets larger. And Iran's history in this conflict tells you what Iran does when it believes escalation is coming. It does not wait for the escalation to arrive. It responds to the military pressure with military pressure of its own on the UAE, on shipping in the Strait, on American naval assets in Hormuz. The 7 Iranian boats that were destroyed in the Project Freedom engagement were not destroyed before Iran fired missiles and drones at American destroyers. Iran fires first, and it absorbs consequences. It fires again. The Lebanon dimension, why Israel bombing Beirut matters. Israel bombed Beirut today, simultaneously with American strikes on Iranian cities. I want to explain why the simultaneous timing of American strikes on Iran and Israeli strikes on Lebanon is the most revealing element of today's escalation, the element that tells you something specific about the strategic coordination between Washington and Tel Aviv that the official narrative of this conflict has consistently obscured. This conflict began on February 28th when the United States and Israel jointly struck Iran. The ceasefire of April 8th was described as an American ceasefire, but Israel continued operating against Iranian proxy forces, Hezbollah infrastructure, and Lebanese territory throughout the ceasefire period. Today's Israeli strikes on Beirut and American strikes on Iranian cities are simultaneous. Simultaneous is not a coincidence. Simultaneous is coordination. The question of who is coordinating with whom, whether the American strikes today were requested by Israel or whether Israel's Beirut strikes are responding to American operational requests, matters for understanding what the goal of today's escalation actually is. What I can say with confidence is that the simultaneous targeting of Iran and Lebanon by America and Israel on the same day, while a one-page memo was under Iranian review, looks less like military pressure to close a deal and more like a coordinated operation to prevent a deal from being closed on terms that constrain both American and Israeli freedom of action against Iran going forward. A deal that ends the war limits what Israel can do against Iranian nuclear infrastructure. A deal that limits what Israel can do against Iranian nuclear infrastructure removes the tool Netanyahu has used to manage his domestic political position throughout this conflict. The strategic interest in preventing a deal is not equally distributed between all parties, and the simultaneous strikes today tell you who has the most interest in preventing it. What the American families watching this need to understand, I want to address this directly, because the people who have been watching this conflict most closely, the Americans who commented that they do not want this war, who have been paying $4.48 at the gas pump, who watched Spirit Airlines close, deserve to understand what today's strikes mean for them specifically. The one-page deal that was reportedly closed yesterday would have triggered a 30-day negotiation that could have produced a genuine settlement. A genuine settlement means Hormuz reopens. Hormuz reopening means oil prices drop. Oil prices dropping means gas prices fall. Americans stop paying for this conflict at the pump every time they fill their tank. Today's strikes on Iranian coastal cities have made that settlement harder to reach before the Beijing summit, which is now 6 days away. Every day the settlement is delayed is another day of elevated energy costs, another day of economic pressure on airlines, trucking companies, manufacturers, and ordinary families. The people making the decision to bomb Bandar Khamir and Qeshm Island today do not pay $4.48 at the gas pump. The people paying $4.48 at the gas pump did not have a vote on whether those cities were struck today. That is the specific connection between American foreign policy decisions and American domestic economic reality that I want every person watching this to carry with them. The bombs that fell on Iranian coastal cities today will be felt by American families at every gas station in America for every day that the settlement is delayed as a result. What comes next? The three scenarios. Let me close with the three possible trajectories from today's strikes, because the next 72 hours will tell you which one is operating. Scenario 1. The strikes are a one-time pressure application designed to force an Iranian response before the Beijing summit. Both sides absorb today's exchange. Iran conveys its response to Pakistani mediators within the original 48-hour window. The one-page memo is signed. The ceasefire language is revised to reflect today's events, and both sides arrive at Beijing with a signed document rather than an active escalation. Scenario 2. Iran responds militarily to today's strikes, attacks on UAE infrastructure, attacks on American naval assets in Hormuz, missile exchanges, and the conflict enters a new escalation phase before Beijing. The summit becomes a crisis management venue rather than a deal-signing venue. She arrives having hosted Arakchi and knowing exactly what Iran's position is. Trump arrives with an escalation on his hands and a summit in 6 days. Scenario 3. The Beijing summit is used to impose a settlement framework that both sides accept, not because it meets their negotiating positions, but because the costs of continued conflict have exceeded the costs of imperfect peace for both parties simultaneously. This is the scenario in which China's role as economic lifeline to Iran and trading partner to America makes Beijing the indispensable venue for a deal that neither side would accept from the other directly. Watch what happens in the next 24 hours. If the bombs stop today and Pakistani mediators report activity, Scenario 1 is operating. If Iran fires back before tomorrow morning, Scenario 2 is operating. And if neither side confirms or denies what is happening in the back channel, while the diplomatic language from both capitals becomes simultaneously more aggressive and more vague, Scenario 3 is being constructed in Beijing right now. American bombs fell on Iranian cities today. Tehran's air defenses are active. The deal that was one page from ending this war is now further away than it was yesterday morning. Watch the next 24 hours, because they will tell you whether this conflict is ending or entering its most dangerous phase yet.